Best way to cook
Yep.
a steak. Cast iron.
Here it comes.
That's so cool.
We'll go back in a second.
Yeah, yeah.
Speaker's almost done. And then it finishes.
All right, so I'm sure some people are probably like, "What did I just watch?"
Yeah, what did I just hear? What did I just experience?
Exactly. So the easiest way to start this whole crazy phrase is to figure out the entire aesthetic of our show is called Unharnessed. So everything that we did musically was to justify the theme and the program show. So what we're doing is we're trying to break free, and you'll hear that literally from break on through from the doors, doom 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 dee dee doom dee. That pop song that we use. So we have all this motivic material, but from a sonic standpoint, we felt like we want to break free from traditional sounds we've heard in drum corps. So that's all of the found instruments and all the tune things, all those planks and those metallic sounds were corresponding with the mode that the front ensemble was in. So the front ensemble, if you listen really carefully, if you watch it again, you can hear break on through to the other side, just really softly, while the bass drums and the found instruments are kind of cross fading. So we get to the bass drums, and this all starts from Chris Hankus and John Harville. Those two gentlemen at the Mapex Corporation heard about what the show was about, and I was explaining a little bit about my background because I'm a 20th century nerd. I'm actually more of a classical musician, and my teacher Fred Bugby really instilled that love of Steve Reich and John Cage. And so I told him what was going on. And right there, what you're showing on your screen is the restaurant we met in that booth at the very top. And they said, well, this is a secret we've been holding on for years. Chris Hankus actually had this idea, and he experimented. We've been afraid to really release it in public. And I looked him in the eye and said, are you guys willing to take a chance with us? Because it sounds like this show could really, really use it. So you can see that's where we met at PASIC, literally a year from this past week. So we started there, and if you'll scroll down just a little bit, that is the illustrious John Harville. So now this is a good opportunity to tell people how it works. So what you can see there, John is a real flattering picture of John there, testing out the breathing tubes. I apologize, John. I love you, buddy. So the idea for those of you that didn't see the show is all of the traditional bass drummers, we just call those the pitched bass drums. So our bass line would put down their normal drums, then they picked up these custom drums that Mapex made for us. And the idea that Chris Hankus and John pitched to me that we just ran with is, how about we seal the drum? There is no way for air to escape anywhere in the drum. No ports, no air holes, except for a breathing tube. So we're going to put a breathing tube up here by our chest. So it's right in front of the carrier. And by the way, don't worry, we'll put an actual pressure gauge here so you can see which note you're playing. So John went to town for weeks and weeks and months and months. They started making prototype after prototype after prototype. This is him sending me a picture of one of the notes on a tuner. Then he would blow as hard as he could, and he'd tap it, tap it, tap it, tap it, tap it, tap it, and see if he could get it up to a fifth or a sixth or an octave. And then he would say, okay, well, here's what worked, here's what didn't. So in the factory, he started to prototype all of these different shells. You can go on.
Sure. Let's scroll down a bit.
And that might have been one of the first ones there. That might have been one of the first shells that they had to sacrifice.
So it says, for those that can't read this, if you're on podcast services, I apologize. Go to YouTube and watch the thing. But I'll read the bullet point that the drums were made from older one-offs around the warehouse, including some very sweet lacquer finishes. Those all had to be sanded so that the green sparkle wrap could adhere to the shell. So this is, again, this all goes into how much of a labor of love and a passion project this show was. Like, just jumping through so many hoops, MacGyvering so many things to get the sounds they wanted. It's insane. I honestly, this is all news to me. I liked your all show a lot last summer. Like, I respected what you all did, but I didn't realize the layers were there to all of this to make it happen.
And just, the drum industry, continuing to experiment to push what we're able to offer from a compositional standpoint as well.
Right.
Great point. Great point, guys. And then what does this say, Mike? Does this have to do with how he had to treat the interior?
Right. So if you're watching on YouTube, you're seeing a picture of the interior of a bass drum shell, and it says the only holes cut in the outer wrap were for the lug casings. Wooden dowels were cut to the depth of the shell to fit in the holes that the normal air vents were, and then sanded down to be even and smooth with the inner shell. It dawned on me during the trials that the condensation levels inside a drum being breathed in with no air vents could get funky. That's probably true. That's a good valid point. With the shells getting wet and the possibility for mold. Mold in marching drums. To combat this, we put them on a Lazy Susan and evenly applied layers of Flex Seal. And this is unreal. The layers crazy, of all of this is unreal. Layers of Flex Seal in order to provide a surface inside the drum that could be cleaned on a regular basis.
Incredible amount of detail and hours and hours and hours. And by the way, I'm learning about this too. So I don't think our percussion staff knew this. I don't think the actual bass drummers knew this. And the whole world couldn't have known about this till now. So I'm really happy to showcase all the hard work that went into this. So thanks again to
We'll
Chris
clip
and
this
John.
whole section. So the podcast will go out and we'll make a clip of this whole segment so it's isolated by itself.
Cool.
Nice.
And then that's obviously a shot of the air pressure gauge, right, Mike? Does he talk about that?
Mm-hmm. So as a trombone player, if you're watching, you can see a pressure gauge right now. As a trombone player, we can go to the same note every time because we know the positions on a trombone slide. This bass drum concept was completely foreign to all. A 3-pound air pressure gauge was drilled in and sealed off in order to provide a consistency to both the players and ensemble. It also looked super techie and a conversation piece.
That's John's sense of humor right there.
Yeah, we actually, on one of the first days of getting those during all days, we had our brass caption head. Do those just because we also we talked with our brass caption head about doing like breathing gym with our bass drummers.
Right. Yeah,
and
that's
seeing
incredible.
how far. Yeah, because a human being could not do the 3 pounds. Like he was our brass caption head, been playing for years and years and years, and I think he was blacking out at 2. He was going crazy, pushing as hard as he could.
Right.
And yeah, it was crazy.
That is amazing. So now you're seeing, if you're watching the finished product, basically the green finish on the bass drums, the finished product, the gauges are on top and everything. You can see the air tube right below the gauges. The finished product was made. The finished product was what made it to the field, of which I'm more proud of the musicians that owned it versus the old grumps that had nothing better to contribute than a bunch of tear-down comments.
Great.
Oh, Jesus.
So I can't wait to talk about that. So everything that you just read, thank you, Mike. So all of that incredible work that Mapex did, John Harville did for us, when you went up to the bass drums and we finally got it to that point, you could hear it. Oh, yeah, I guess it is kind of going up and down. That was as loud and as effective as it could be. Then the other 50% of the magic of that moment all came from Mr. Catherall. So, James, you want to talk us through how you put of course, he put a wireless mic on it, but that's only half of the story. Wait till he starts talking about the vocoder and how we pitched the synth to be in the right chordal structure as the front ensemble. So we had to put the melodic bass drums in the same key as the front ensemble. Let that sink in for a second.
Go here.
Here it comes. You can hear it climbing.
Space.
Yes, sir.
It's so cool.
So
And
much
even
innovation.
Yeah, those last little bugadas, they were climbing in pitch. Mm.